My father gave my sister a Mercedes and sent me to my graduation on a bus, but it wasn't until my name was called on stage that he realized he had underestimated me. My name is Alyssa Ellis. That morning in Edison, New Jersey, I stood at the bus stop in my cap and gown diploma folder tucked under my arm, watching cars pull away with families cheering and balloons everywhere. My sister Mackenzie had just driven off in her brand new Mercedes, the giant bow still on the hood, my father behind the wheel, giving her that proud smile I'd seen 1,000 times but never directed at me. He glanced my way once, shrugged, and said the same line he'd used for years: "You'll be fine. You're used to handling things on your own." I boarded the bus alone, the gown brushing against dirty seats, repeating those words in my head while trying not to let them crack something that had already been stretched thin for too long. By the time I reached the arena, the place was packed with proud parents snapping photos, holding flowers, calling out names they actually knew. I took my place in line, kept my eyes forward, and told myself this was still my moment, even if no one else seemed to think so. Then they called my name. I walked across the stage. They didn't just announce my degree. They announced highest honors. They announced the Dean's Excellence Award for academic performance and community contribution. The applause rolled longer than for most others. When I turned toward the crowd, I found my family, and for the first time my father's face wasn't bored or dismissive. It was stunned. If you're dealing with family favoritism, stick around because this one hits different. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more real stories like this. Growing up in Edison, New Jersey, our house looked perfectly normal from the outside. Neat lawn holiday lights. The kind of place people drove past without a second thought. But inside, there was an unspoken rule that shaped every single day. Mackenzie needed constant attention because she was the bright, emotional one, and I was expected to handle everything myself. When I was 7, I fell off my bike and scraped my knee bloody. I limped inside for a bandage, but Mackenzie was already in the living room crying over a broken toy. My father rushed to her with ice and comfort words, while my mother handed me a box of Band-Aids from the cabinet without looking up. "You're tough, Alyssa. You can do it." They said it like praise. It never felt like praise. Birthdays made the pattern impossible to ignore. Mackenzie got new bikes, art sets, weekend dance classes, and full family dinners with cake and candles. I got practical things, new school shoes, because mine were worn out, a jacket on clearance, or sometimes just a gift card handed over with a quick, "Happy birthday, sweetie." If my face showed any disappointment, the response was always the same: "You don't need all that fuss. You're independent." By middle school, the division was routine. My father drove Mackenzie to cheer tryouts, horseback riding lessons, every activity she wanted to try. He told neighbors how proud he was watching her perform. I took the public bus home after school, let myself into the empty house, did homework at the kitchen table, and heated whatever leftovers were in the fridge. It wasn't loud neglect. It was quiet, consistent choices stacked over years. One child was treated like the family's future. The other was treated like she'd figure it out. In high school, I met Sydney Thompson at the public library. We were both there, escaping noisy homes for different reasons. She noticed things no one else mentioned: how my parents only showed up to school events when Mackenzie was performing, how I always checked my wallet twice before agreeing to grab food, how I never looked surprised when they left award ceremonies before my name was called. One afternoon, after they'd done it again, Sydney looked at me across the table and said quietly, "You know this isn't normal, right?" I shrugged. By then it was the only normal I had. The imbalance only grew more expensive as we got older. Mackenzie's room filled with new clothes, makeup packages arriving weekly. When I asked for help with college application fees, I got a lecture about budgeting and being realistic. My father loved talking about Mackenzie's potential, her dreams, her plans. When the conversation turned to me, it switched to logistics. "You're steady," he would say. "You don't need hand-holding." So I learned to nod, swallow the frustration, and calculate how many after-school hours it would take to cover what no one else was going to pay for. There was never one big betrayal, just 1,000 small decisions all pointing to the same truth. When I started college at 18, everything changed because I made it change. I chose a state school in New Jersey close enough to commute some days, but far enough to breathe. I moved into the cheapest dorm with a secondhand suitcase and enough money for 2 weeks of groceries. My scholarship covered tuition, but rent, books, food that was on me. The first semester hit hard. I needed cash fast. I got a job in the campus mailroom sorting packages under fluorescent lights that never turned off. I watched other students pick up care packages from home snacks, clothes notes from parents. I told myself not to compare. At night, I cleaned hallways and bathrooms in an office building nearby industrial cleaner aching knees. The same loop of thought, one more shift, one more bill paid. When that still wasn't enough, I signed up for a food delivery service. I bought a beat-up second-hand bike and spent evenings racing through Edison and nearby towns with bags balanced behind me. That's how I met Brandon Reed. One late shift, the hallway was empty except for one lit office at the end. I knocked, adjusted the paper bag, and said, "Delivery." The door opened to a man in his mid-30s sleeves, rolled-up whiteboard behind him, covered in sketches and arrows. He looked like he'd forgotten he ordered anything. "You're out this late?" he asked while signing. I gave a tired smile. "This is early for me. Still got reading to do after." He paused. "You're a student?" I nodded. "How many jobs?" "3 right now. Mailroom cleaning this. Full-time classes too, yes." He handed back the receipt with a tip that made me blink twice. "What's your major?" "Communications." "Trying to figure out the rest." He studied me for a second. Not pity, just recognition. "Get home safe." I left thinking it was just another interaction. But it stuck because it was the first time in years someone asked what I was building instead of how I was surviving. A week later, I delivered to the same office again. He recognized me immediately. "Delivery girl with 3 jobs," he said. "Hoped I'd see you again." He asked my name. Then he asked questions no one else had: what I wanted after graduation, what classes actually excited me, what part of my schedule felt impossible. I started with short answers, but he listened like pretending wasn't an option. So I told the truth. I liked stories, messaging, building things that mattered. I was tired in a way that sleep didn't fix. He told me he ran Reed and Harris, a branding and strategy firm working with small businesses and nonprofits. His partner was Caitlin Harris. They helped companies say who they were in ways people actually heard. Then he said the sentence that shifted my path. "You should apply for our internship program." I almost laughed. "I can't work for free." "No one's covering my rent while I learn." "It's paid," he said. "Not a fortune, but fair. And you do real work." "Why me?" "Because you already know how to carry weight. Skills can be taught. That can't." I applied a week later after a brutal cleaning shift. I wrote the truth, multiple jobs, detail attention, dealing with tired people, handling pressure without breaking. 2 weeks later, the offer came. Paid. Flexible around classes. Real projects. I accepted the same day. The internship at Reed and Harris changed everything. Walking into that office felt like stepping into a version of my life I hadn't dared imagine. Glass walls, whiteboards full of ideas, campaign posters everywhere. Brandon introduced me to Caitlin Harris. Sharp eyes, zero patience for excuses. She didn't ease me in. She handed me a client brief and said, "Your observations by end of day." It terrified me. It also made me better. For the first time, being independent wasn't an excuse for being ignored, it was an asset. I learned to read clients' shape messages, take feedback without crumbling, improve work instead of doubting myself. I kept the delivery shifts for extra cash, but the cleaning job ended. My time started mattering. Meanwhile, my family stayed exactly the same. They rarely called. When they did, it was because they needed something. My life was background noise. "She's off at college doing her thing," my father once told an aunt. Always been independent. "We don't worry." One afternoon, my father called. He didn't ask about classes or how I was holding up. He went straight to the point. "Mackenzie wants to start a boutique. Since you're messing with that computer stuff, you could build her website, logo, social media, all of it. For free, obviously." When I said I didn't have time or capacity for unpaid work, he reminded me of everything we've done for you. That phrase lit something. For years, I'd accepted scraps and called it support. This time, I didn't. Family shows up before they need something from you, I said. Silence. Then he accused me of changing. I grew up, I answered. He hung up without goodbye. For the first time, choosing myself didn't feel wrong. It felt necessary. At Reed and Harris, I kept learning. Caitlin pushed harder. Brandon gave real feedback. Clients started noticing my work. I wasn't just surviving anymore, I was building. My family barely registered it. To them, I was still the steady one who didn't need much. The one who could be counted on when they needed help, but never the one whose dreams mattered first. By junior year, the split was clean. One side was the future I was earning, classes, projects, people who valued what I brought. The other side was distance and predictability, still treating me like a resource instead of a person. By senior year, my life had two clear tracks. On one track, I was finishing strong capstone project for a local nonprofit, strong grades, professors writing recommendations. On the other track, my family stayed distant, calling only when Mackenzie had news or needed help. One afternoon, my advisor told me to check my email. The dean's office had been trying to reach me. I opened it and read 3 times. Dean's Excellence Award recipient. Highest honors. Department recognition for academic performance and community contribution. I called Brandon and Caitlin right after. Caitlin said they finally noticed. Brandon said, "Take it in. This is yours." That word stayed with me. Yours. I told my family only the date and time of graduation. Nothing about the award. I wanted one moment in my life they couldn't turn into something about Mackenzie. The weeks leading up were quiet. I finished finals, packed up dorm stuff, signed lease papers for a tiny apartment closer to the office. I was staying in New Jersey after graduation, full-time offer already on the table. My father called once to confirm the ceremony time. He asked if I needed a ride. I said no, I'd take the bus like always. He didn't push. He never did when it was me. Mackenzie texted a thumbs-up emoji and a good luck sis. That was it. I didn't tell them about the award because I didn't want the moment twisted. For once, I wanted to stand on that stage and feel like the center of my own story, even if just for a few minutes. The night before graduation, I laid out my cap and gown, set the alarm early, and stared at the ceiling, thinking about how far I'd come without anyone carrying me. I wasn't angry anymore, just clear. Whatever happened the next day, I had already built something they couldn't touch. Graduation morning arrived like any other day, except it wasn't. I stood at the bus stop in Edison while cars full of families drove past toward the arena. My father had bought Mackenzie a Mercedes the week before. I watched her drive off in it that morning, giant bow still tied to the hood. My father in the passenger seat giving her instructions like she was heading into battle. He glanced at me once through the window, shrugged and said the same old line, "You'll be fine on the bus." I boarded a lone gown, brushing against seat's diploma folder in my lap. By the time I reached the arena, the place was filled with proud parents, flowers, cheers for names they knew. I took my spot in line and kept my eyes forward. Then they called my name. I walked across the stage. They announced my degree, highest honors, and the Dean's Excellence Award. The applause lasted longer than I expected. When I turned toward the seats, I saw my family, and for the first time, my father's face wasn't bored. It was stunned. After the ceremony, he texted, "Meet us by the fountain." I walked out holding my diploma and award folder. They were waiting, my father arms crossed, my mother with a practiced smile, Mackenzie scrolling her phone in a dress that cost more than my entire wardrobe. The Mercedes was parked nearby. My father hugged me the way people hug when others are watching. My mother's eyes went straight to the folder. "You didn't tell us about that," she said. "I didn't think you'd care," I answered. Mackenzie laughed lightly. "Of course we care. It makes the family look good." There it was. Not pride in me, pride in the reflection. Then my father lowered his voice to the real reason. "We've been talking. It'd be best if you moved home for a bit. Save money. Help out. Mackenzie's boutique is ready to launch, And with your marketing skills, you could get it off the ground fast. My little marketing skills. My degree, my internship, my job offer reduced to a tool for someone else. I looked at all three of them. I already have a full-time offer at Reed and Harris. I'm staying here. My father's jaw tightened. You're choosing some small job over family. After everything we've invested in you, I thought of scholarships, skipped meals, rain-soaked deliveries, nights, cleaning floors. I thought of the bus that morning. What exactly did you invest? I asked quietly. My mother looked startled. We raised you. Roof over your head. You chose where to put effort, I said. You chose which daughter got support and which one got told she'd figure it out. I figured it out. Without you, my father snapped. Watch your tone. And you should listen, I replied. I'm not moving back. I'm not building Mackenzie's business while you call my work little and treat my life like it only matters when you need something. For the first time, I saw fear on his face. Not for me, fear that I wouldn't obey the role anymore. You're being selfish, he said. Family stands together. Family shows up before the photo ops, I said. Family has room in the car on graduation day. Family asks how you survived before asking what you can do for them. The silence felt final. If you want branding for the boutique, I said hire someone. Pay them, respect them. That's how it works. I'm not your free service. He stared like I'd spoken another language. We took a few stiff photos after that because habits die hard. To strangers, they probably looked normal. But under the smiles, something had ended. 8 months after graduation, life felt solid for the first time. I moved into a small apartment closer to Reed and Harris. I signed the full-time contract. Work got harder, tighter deadlines, bigger clients. But every day, the gap between who my family thought I was and who I actually was grew wider. Then the front desk called one afternoon. 3 people were there asking for me. My family plus Justin Caldwell, Mackenzie's fiancé. They walked into the conference room carrying folders, projections, mock-ups. My father spread everything across the table and explained that Mackenzie's boutique was ready to go big. They wanted a full launch campaign branding, social strategy, professional execution, and they expected me to make it happen. Not because they respected the work, because they thought they owned access to it. When they finished, I looked at the materials, then back at them. You want Reed and Harris to take you on as a client, I said. You want my time, my expertise, my reputation tied to a project you planned without asking. And you came assuming I'd be grateful. My father bristled. We're giving you a chance to prove yourself. I almost laughed. I thought of real clients, contracts, invoices, timelines, boundaries. Then I thought of the bus stop. No, I said. My father blinked. No, I'm not turning my work into a favor you never planned to respect. If you want the firm, go through the proper process like any client. But I won't be your guarantee, and I won't handle this account myself. My mother said I was letting pride block healing. I told her the truth. You didn't come to heal anything. You came because you realized I have something you want. Mackenzie called me dramatic. I looked at her. You got the resources. I got the lesson. Now you're here because I turned that lesson into something valuable. That's not family. That's opportunism. Justin jumped in. Come on, Alyssa. It's just helping your sister. Family first, right? I met his eyes. Family doesn't show up only when they need free marketing. The room went quiet. My father made one last push. If you walk away from this, don't expect us when you change your mind. I felt the same calm I'd felt at the fountain. I stopped expecting that years ago, I said. I handed the folder back, opened the door, and ended the meeting. When the elevator closed behind them, I didn't shake. I didn't cry. I didn't second guess. I just felt relief. That was the day I understood something simple and final. Sometimes the people who raised you are the last to see who you became, not because you failed, but because they were too busy looking for the version of you that still needed them, or worse, the version they could still use. I never heard from them again after that meeting. Mackenzie and Justin tried to launch the boutique anyway. They hired a cheap freelancer for branding, cut corners on inventory, opened in a strip mall near Edison. 6 months later, it closed. They lost most of the money they'd invested savings, small loans, gifts from relatives. Word spread fast in our small circle. Friends who used to come to family barbecues stopped calling. My father's golf buddies started asking awkward questions. The proud man who once bragged about his daughter's potential now avoided the topic. They never apologized. They never reached out to rebuild. And I never reached back. I stayed at Reed and Harris, moved up to senior strategist within 2 years. I built campaigns that actually mattered to people. I paid off student loans early. I made friends who showed up not because they needed something, but because they wanted to be there. If you're standing at your own version of that bus stop right now, wondering if asking for more makes you selfish, wondering if walking away from family means you're broken, hear this clearly. Choosing yourself isn't betrayal. It's survival. It's the start of a life where your value isn't measured by how much mistreatment you'll accept. My father once bought my sister a Mercedes and told me to take the bus. For years, I thought that said something about my worth. Now I know it said everything about theirs. I can't change the years I accepted less because I didn't know better. But I can choose every day to build a life where I'm not begging for a seat in a car that was never meant to carry me. And if this reaches you while you're still figuring out your own path, remember sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stop waiting for them to see you and start seeing yourself.